Hi, tea sippers. Welcome to Clock to Tea with Dr. Long. This is your host, Mark Long. All right, buckle up because we're about to dive into some politics. So politics this week has been serving a lot more drama than maybe your aunt and uncles at Thanksgiving who want to talk politics. But let's go ahead and hop into what we can today. First up, the annual turkey party. President Trump strutted out with gobble and wobble. Like they were constituents from the Masked Singer, but anyway. But yeah, he strutted out with the turkeys to pardon them like he usually does, and like every president does. It's not really special to him. And he bragged about the prices of turkeys going down because nothing says economic policies like a frozen bird on Thanksgiving. But anyway, so we know based on some of the information provided from research online that Thanksgiving dinner typically used to cost around, close to $55 in 2024. And they're saying that price has gone up about $20. So, Trump can tout his little thing about turkey prices going down all he wants to, but that doesn't really tell us anything in regards to what's happening with the actual economy and what's happening with grocery prices. So honestly, I'm just waiting to hear him start partying or start talking about, cranberry sauce and the price of breadcrumbs and stuffing and that kind of thing and how that's gone down since he wants to brag about turkey, Moving on. So meanwhile, the FBI has decided to spice things up, with an investigation into 6 Democratic lawmakers. So the charge is encouraging military members to basically resist illegal orders. So Trump is accusing these Democratic leaders as being seditious or committing a seditious act by putting out the statement and those ads. Democrats called it intimidation. I call it messy, obviously. And the timing is everything, and this timing screams political theater. Now, we know looking back at this that there's several things to consider here. So lawmakers include Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona and Representative Jason Crow from Colorado, among others. In this lawsuit or in this basically in this proposal from the president. And Trump labeled their actions as seditious, as we mentioned, but he also is kind of leaning into this escalation of partisan tensions between the Democrats and Republicans in Congress. And there is a lot of understanding that this is an intimidation tactic by Donald Trump to make sure that Democrats keep silent about everything that's happening illegally with the president right now. So we'll be following this story very closely. Moving on from that. We talked a little bit about Marjorie Taylor Greene last week. And yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Trump loyalist, the MAGA, far-right conspiracy theorist, that MTG, has announced that she is resigning in January. So her farewell letter dragged the political industrial complex, and she threw shade at MAGA itself. So she's basically saying that MAGA is responsible for the shift in the party and what's happening with the funding bill and the lack of remorse that comes from her party in terms of making sure America comes first. She touted a lot of information about that on The View. And then this comes about a couple weeks later after her visit there and her, basically her public exchange with the president and how he called her a traitor. So when your own team gets tired of your chaos, the vibes are off. And the GOP majority just got shakier than, your nasty grandma's Jell-O at your Thanksgiving, okay? Or whenever she used to make that stuff. But it's getting pretty messy, I would say, political-wise. And I think if she's willing to leave, if she's willing to leave, I think that's saying a lot about how chaotic things have gone. But also, in my opinion, I feel like she should have stayed and fought. I think she's already doing the right thing by standing up for her constituents in her district. But it seems like maybe it's misleading. Maybe she's resigning because, in fact, her district does lean more towards Trump, and she's trying to push for her moral opinions and what she feels is right. And I think once you start to do that and you go against the grain, you start to basically get pushed back from your cult leader. And I think that's exactly what's happening right now in the GOP. Moving forward, so now let's talk about Epstein. Tens of thousands of pages of documents are dropping like mixtapes, and everyone's name is in the liner notes. I'm telling y'all, it's just getting out of hand. So Trump signed off on releases, and committees are publishing emails now, and the public is left asking, So who knew what was going on and when and what now was happening? Transparency is cute, but we're not going to get any of that. Conspiracy theories are already multiplying like rabbits in the spring, and we're starting to see a bunch of information coming out about potential Democratic officials and also rich leaders and billionaires' names floating around, especially former members that have served in Congress and former presidential candidates like President Clinton or presidents, as I should say, President Clinton and presidential candidates would be Hillary. So we'll be following that closely. It'll be interesting to see how much they pivot or if the Epstein files have been washed. I believe it was Mark Epstein, who is Jeffrey Epstein's younger brother or older brother, went out and said that the files are being scrubbed in a private location on the East Coast somewhere, I believe. And this is interesting, too, because what does he have to gain from this? I know a lot of GOP members in Congress are saying that this is all conspiracy and an attack from the left and a hoax to drag names through that are part of the GOP to derail the progress of the current administration. And we all know that's clearly not true. We know that there's thousands of victims and there were thousands of girls under the age of 15 that were abused. So hopefully justice will come from this very soon. Moving on from that. So next, the Trump administration wants to go and recheck every refugee admitted under the Biden administration. So about 200,000 people. So folks who thought they were safe might get dragged back into interviews with no appeal rights based on what this administration is saying. Advocates are calling it cruel and officials are calling it vetting from the administration. I call it fear dressed up as policy. And I think what's happening right now is that they are trying every way to go against the grain and to be completely racist pieces of shits by going after people who have earned their right to be in this country legally, who went through the process of being a refugee. Now, what this looks like, if we go back to some of the reporting, is that there was a memo that was ordered, I believe it was from the USCIS on November 21st, admitted under the Biden administration from 2021 to 2025. And this memo basically ordered that refugees that were already admitted here, and I can pull that information up for you right now, are protected and they have a right to appeal. But with the Trump administration going after that memo, refugees may face re-interviews, possible revocation of protections with no right to appeal whatsoever, meaning that if they get re-interviewed and they are resettled in their community, there is most definitely a chance that the fear amongst communities will grow as it's going to be expedited, in regards to making sure people are removed from the country. So, sorry, got a little jumbly there. So we'll be following that closely. This is very scary for those who are, basically Americans, in my opinion, and we will see how this pushback happens. Hopefully there's a lot of Democratic officials that will stand up for the right thing. So, and finally, the headline that made me spit out my coffee earlier this week, or my tea, was New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, walked into the White House and sat down with Trump, or stood with Trump, whichever. And remember, Mamdani once called himself a fascist, or called Trump a fascist, and Trump shrugged it off like a bad Yelp review. The symbolism here, we know, is a chef's kiss that Mamdani was basically asked by a reporter if he considers Trump a fascist, and Trump kind of just shooed it away and said, hey, just whatever, we know, just don't worry about answering that, which is kind of telling based on where they are. It was very chummy, too, between the both of them, so I assume that there's some camaraderie. I think this is very strategic coming from Trump, but I think Mamdani is not trying to double down, and there's some conversation about when Mamdani doubled down on calling Israel's actions genocide, and the room got hotter and hotter, and power dynamics have definitely shifted. So we'll see what happens here, but we already know that this was just a huge political show by Trump, and hopefully Mamdani will keep his word to his constituents in New York City, but also the people that voted for him, and I'm looking forward to see how well he does. So yeah, there you have it. Turkey pardons, political investigations. Green is getting out of Congress. The Epstein file receipts are dropping. And I'm sure we're going to be finding out more information as we go on this holiday season. Thanks for tuning in to That Political Tea. Bringing you more.